If I could only figure out how to get my team motivated.
We are never going to get this project done on time.
Oh my God, my payroll numbers are insane. Why are we having all this overtime?
Do you have these or similar employee problems? Do you feel like some of your employees are just there for a paycheck? Tired of recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and training just to find out you must do it all over again? Then it's time for you to find out how to have outrageously awesome employees. Sit back, buckle up, and get ready because we're about to drop a knowledge bomb on you. Please welcome to the mic the host of the show, the man who puts the human in human resources, the 007 of team building, the emperor of employee engagement, Randy Starr.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of How to Have Outrageously Awesome Employees. Today, we have a special guest all the way from California, Luis Mendoza, who is now with BPR Properties. Luis, how are you today?
Pretty good. Thank you very much.
Good. So before we get started, let's just take a couple minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, you know, where you've worked, the things you've done, where you've worked, that kind of thing, so everybody can have a good idea of who you are.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure.
For the past 16 years, I've been in a management role, mostly with retail, recently in the hospitality industry. Out of those 16 years, 8 years have been in the senior leadership role, developing plans and implementing them as well. But really, the first 8 years is what sort of gave me the roadmap of success to implement these programs. And the reason for that is because I was part of the front line. And when I was in the front line, I sort of got a feeling where our senior leadership wouldn't listen to us. So part of being in the HR role as I am now, my role is to give everybody a voice. So working really hard on that human part of the human relationship, department, I guess you can say. But
Right.
That's been my focus.
Very good. Very good. Isn't that the kind of like the whole idea of HR is to give everybody a voice?
It is, but it's somehow in the past few years that human part of the HR has dropped, and you find it really amazing where you're in different companies and there's no voice. There's no voice for the little guy.
So in the past, when I've talked to other HR professionals like yourself, we have discussed kind of the evolution of HR. Way back in the day when I was a little kid, my mother worked in human resources, but back then it was called personnel.
Yes.
And it was basically record keeping of employee files. Not much more, really. And then it started to evolve into human resources, where then they started companies started adding responsibilities to the department, to now where almost every human resources department is considered a business partner.
Correct.
Even though it's typically a non-revenue generating department, but they still have a lot of responsibility within the organization. So do you think that evolution is part of the reason why the voice has been lost?
Well, you hit it right in the head. We do not generate any money for the bottom line,
Right.
and all the time that has led our senior leadership say, well, if you're not generating any money, how important are you to me?
Right.
It goes back to that philosophy of the money makers are the ones that call the shots. Now, we in the HR field are those people that are keeping that money in the bank, that
Exactly.
are keeping, because you find it amazing how much money you can lose by just not doing the right hire. So when you give your executive team the bottom line on how much money we're saving you,
Right.
that's when we become important. But yeah,
Yep.
we're not generating any money. We're keeping the money safe.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it too. That's a great way to put it. So you're now in hospitality,
Yes.
Which is obviously very labor intensive.
Right.
Takes a lot of people to run a hotel. In a labor intensive environment, there's always employee related issues. What do you see to be the biggest issue or one of the biggest issues, and what do you do to try to deter that?
Okay. Well, one of the biggest challenges that we've had, or that we have, going on now is that generation change between the people from the previous generation into the people that are coming into the workforce. People back in the previous generation, we believe in hard work.
Right.
You were sweaty. You had that blood, sweat, and tears mentality where if you didn't get home and you were exhausted, you felt that your day was not productive. Versus the new generation now that are constantly seeking that work-life balance, right? One of those two words that should not be combined, and being able to understand what that is. Even though people nowadays, they still do not know what work-life means exactly, and the way that we sort of battle that when we hear that in the field, what is work-life balance to me?
Right.
We try to educate them, to understand better that a balance works. You put in some, you lose some. You put in some, you lose some. So there's really no, not a real balance, but more of an integration. So we try to do that work, life integration as opposed to balance. I just don't like that term. Sometimes as an organization, you cannot help other people's issues in outside of work, but you try to be understanding of their needs.
Right.
So I think that the biggest thing that we try to explain to everybody is that as an organization, we do value them as not employees anymore, but more like team members, more like team contributors, and that it's just more like education. That's the biggest thing that we try to do. We have our department heads, we have our general managers, we have a lot of leadership and constant training and constant communication. That's one of the things that you can have. One of the things that we always like to say is that you cannot have everything in life. So working with the punches and adjusting. But we do understand that as an organization, you do have to be flexible as well.
Luis, that's a great point. The work-life balance. I've been posting for the last maybe month and researching work-life balance. Been posting on LinkedIn because there's been a change, and you call it a generational change where folks from my generation and before me even, it was work. And like you say, we get home, if we're not exhausted, we felt like we didn't do something that we should have done. I was always taught growing up, you give 100% at work and you do what your boss tells you to do the whole bit, and you'll be fine. Well, the change, there's also a change. and you kind of pointed it out in a way. I have kind of come to the conclusion that work-life balance, whether you like the term or not, is defined differently by each individual.
Mm.
In other words, right now, I have a 25-year-old daughter who is single, and she's constantly working. She always has at least 2, but most of the time 3 jobs, and she works. But I would probably say in the next, 5, 6, 7 years, if she gets married and has children, that will change because then she won't want to do that type of work. She'll want to probably spend more time at home, I would imagine. Right. So not only is it defined differently by each person, but I would almost go out and say that it changes for each person. It did for me, because when I was a kid, I worked from the minute I woke up till the minute I went to bed, and thought that was the way it should be. But then when I got married and started having kids, it was like, well, I want to stay home with the family a little bit. Right. I don't want to be at work all the time. But it's tough. And when when the younger generation, and my daughter talks to me about this, when their work-life balance is more balanced on life than the work part, it makes it kind of tough.
Right. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, we have, people that, to me, the job is never done. And I was raised that way as well. The job is never done. There's always something to do.
Always.
And then we have, this generation coming up to, remote days. What can I work from home days?
Right.
And sure, you can do it as long as the job is done. We're not here to babysit. We're grown adult professionals. You do what must be done as long as the job is done. It's a trust thing. You give
right.
them, you give some. But a lot of the times, it's even after you get home, and even after you're working from home, is that really what you were expecting?
Right.
So it's always give some, take some, but yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like the term, but try to more like be an integration to your point.
Right.
It depends on what type of level of life you're in. That everything's going to change.
Exactly. Yeah, I read an article this morning that I reposted, and it's pretty much what this author of the article was saying was, I want to work. It's not the same every day for her.
Right.
She was like, today, I have a lot of work to do, so I'm not going to spend much time with my family. But tomorrow, I don't have as much work scheduled, so I'll spend more time with my family. So it's kind of like a wave. And she schedules out her time over 60 days to make sure that the important things, family-wise, are handled.
Right.
They don't interrupt business travel and meetings and that type of thing. So yeah, it's a great topic. I love it. I'm really getting interested in it the more I talk about it.
Yeah.
So we've kind of determined that human resources is pretty busy because of all the additional responsibilities they've been given over the year. How do you find time to keep employee engagement programs going? I mean, you've got legal stuff, you've got business stuff, planning stuff. How do you find time to keep any type of program engagement-wise for your staffs? How do you find time to keep that going?
So going back to the beginning, it's just finding the time. But talking about HR always being busy, that's an understatement. We wear different hats most of the time, and that's what we're in this field for. We're not in the field to file, to what you were saying, personal files, all day. We're here to do a service, and it will be a disservice to the business itself, not to put your effort in your business. And I think that people are our business. In fact, I think that people are everybody's business. We hear this great speakers out there talking about how people are your business, and I really believe that. Without the people, our bottom line suffers. Again, going back to that executive meetings with the higher ups, right? If you show them that you do not have people, or you have the wrong people in the seats that they're in, your bottom line will suffer. So keeping that effort, keeping everybody engaged and developed, not only will your business suffer if you don't have that, but also us in the HR business, making a distinction between having our staff, between having it satisfy people as opposed to having engaged people, and having that distinction between them too. satisfaction it's a feeling that can easily come and go, but engagement, in the other hand, you have people going above and beyond and talking about how you get the extra mile when people are engaging and believing your vision. So that's how I believe that you should always make time. You should always make time for your business, and our business are people.
Great point. There's a huge difference between satisfaction and engagement. A lot of people still tend to think happiness and satisfaction are engagement, but
right.
You're right. Satisfaction comes and goes in a second.
Exactly.
Happiness comes and goes.
You're satisfied now, and then later on something happens that will automatically make you change your mind.
I mean, when I grew up, when I started working in hospitality, I went to work for Marriott International years ago, back in the 80s, and I was a highly engaged employee. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I was. There were many times when I wasn't happy, and there were many times when I wasn't satisfied, but I was always very engaged and very excited about work, very excited about accomplishing the goal for the day or the month or the year, whatever it was I was doing. So yeah, it's a huge, huge difference. So what type of programs do you prefer to grow engagement in your current organization? And the programs that you do what types of positive or negative, because sometimes programs don't work, what do you see as far as engagement changes, whether it be on a survey, score, or what?
So one of the things that we ask, and that we pretty much ask from every single department head, is that for them to remember that we are in the hospitality industry, and that goes both ways. That goes to our guests and to our team members. So never let them forget that. Another thing is realigning ourselves to our core values as a company, and aligning those core values with the values of the team members. Meaning, we'll have a monthly meeting to give shout outs to people that went above and beyond.
Right.
But then we'll have peers recommending awards to those other ones, and then being recognized by your own peers, that gives that extra incentive to whatever you're doing, whether it's just a standing ovation, or whether it's a plaque, or whether it's a free lunch, whatever it might be.
Right.
Finding a common ground when it comes to aligning and realigning your values, whether it's community service, going out and doing something for the community, finding a common ground to get your values matching with the values of your team members goes a long way. We call them the win-wins, right? Yeah. You get a win because you get an engaged employee, and you get a more productive employee as well. Right.
Very good. It's amazing how many people still don't quite grasp that,
Yes.
I think the reason why I grasped it so well was because I was engaged.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that's what I was. But I can think back even when I first started I was a part-time front desk clerk. My friends outside of work would get annoyed with me because I was talking about work so much. It's like, oh man, this place is great. You wouldn't believe it, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, no, you need to be quiet.
And if you translate that into, that one engaged employee, bringing in your friends. Let's say your friends were like, "Well, I want to be that. I want to feel that at work." Nobody,
exactly.
A lot of people feel that way, and finding how much that brings in, revenue wise, retention wise, and it goes hand in hand with everything
right.
that we do. And having our leaders understand that part, that's what's made the difference so far.
Right.
this past few months that I've been here.
Yeah, very good. Okay, one last question for you. Nationally, I think the unemployment rate just dropped to 3.7. Now, I talk to people all over the country on a weekly basis, and I've talked to people in markets where it's been just over 1%.
Right.
Talked to a few people that it was a little up in the mid fours. I'm not sure what it is there, but how has it affected your retention? How has this unemployment affected your retention, and what do you do to attempt to reduce turnover?
So it definitely has affected our hiring process. People are not looking, and even if they are looking, it's sort of like we call them the passive, candidate. They're just putting out their resumes and finding out what better, what other things are out there.
Right.
We find a lot of the stuff that people are walking out of businesses, or people are walking out of jobs, or ghosting interviews because they just do not believe what that company is selling. The way that we do things, and going back to your previous conversation, your previous question, is getting that culture where we have our people referring others, and we have our team members writing reviews and sharing the way that we believe in developing, and I call it the end of the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, I should say. A lot of people are not satisfied with just doing the bare minimum anymore. Right. But also we have to remember that our job from hiring is not over when you hire somebody. Your job is to keep that person engaged, whether it's 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road. We call them the rehires. Not that we're bringing people back, but we are rehiring our current staff to make sure that their core values realign to what we're saying. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. And that has helped our retention quite a bit. I mean, that has helped our retention because we know that they can just walk across the street, get paid, 50 cents to $1 more an hour, and, do the same job. But do you want to do the same job where somebody, you go there and clock in and do your job, or you want to go somewhere where you actually have a sense of belonging? And
right.
That's what we're pitching. That's what we're selling. That's what we have. Just because if you find that value in the company that it's investing in you as to grow, and you're making an impact because you have a voice, that will bring the retention, that will help anybody with retention.
Yeah, very good. Rehiring the people that already work there.
Yes, sir.
That's great. I like that. That's a great way to put it too.
Yeah, it's not done when a lot of people feel that it's done. That your hiring is done when they sign the offer letter, right. Or or they come to orientation,
right.
Or when they complete their first week.
Yeah.
They have a party because they have going on. And my point is, keep rehiring them. Keep talking to them, keep their communication open, keep finding out what's going on. Because again, their values might be one thing this week, right. Or like you said, to your point, you might not be married today, right. But in 3 years, you have a family, you have a kid. Let's find ways to get you re-engaged in our
right. Very good. Great stuff. Luis, I really appreciate your time today. This has been some really good stuff. Going to help a lot of people, hopefully everybody that listens to it, I'm sure. For those of you who have not subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe now button and we will update you when we have new content for you to watch. Hope everybody has a great day, and bye for now.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Please feel free to contact Randy with any questions about team building or employee engagement issues. Subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified when new episodes are published.